What is up, math superstars? In this edition of Mr. Peterson Presents, we're going to talk about how to choose which measure of center is the best in a given situation. And so there are three ways to find the average or the measure of center. And so you know these as mean, median, and mode. And so mean is going to be used. So we have to decide. Remember, we're going to be given a situation. We have to decide which one of these three is going to be the best to use in a given situation here. And so we have three to choose from. So mean is going to be used when the data is going to be close together. And so you'll see that in these upcoming examples. In order to pick median, median is going to be used when what we have called an outlier. And mode is going to be used for surveys, yes or no surveys, or which category had the most. So when we talk about an outlier, let's give a definition and an example here. And so the definition of an outlier, these are values in the data that are either much lower or much higher than the rest of the data. And so when you're given some data, the first thing you're going to look at is to figure out if that data has an outlier. And so we're given these values at the bottom here. So we're given 4, 8, 6, 7, and 37. And so if our definition of an outlier are values that are much lower or much higher than the rest, we can see that 4, 8, 6, and 7 here. So these values are really close to each other, but then we have this other value 37, which is much higher than the other ones. And so what we can call 37 is going to be our outlier. So now let's take a look at some situations here, and we need to figure out which measure of center is going to be the best fit for the situation. And so what we have here is we have this list shows the number of text messages 5 friends sent last week. So you have 13, 60, 61, 63, and 64. And so if we take a look at these options here, the first one let's go to cross out mode. So we don't have any kind of yes or no survey or category. So we're going to get rid of mode right away. And so it's either a choice between mean or median. And so remember with median, we're going to figure out if this set of data has any outliers. And so in looking at this, we have an outlier in 13. And so 13 is much lower than the rest of the data. So what we can say is that it's going to be median. And then we need to give an explanation for it because one value is lower than the rest. And so this data has an outlier. So this is going to be important. I'd say it's median, but then you have to give the reason behind it. So let's take this one. So this one says, which situation would require finding the mean as an appropriate measure of center? And so with mean, we're looking for data that is going to be close together. We're not looking for outliers, and we're not looking for yes or no surveys or the most. So let's take a look at the first one. It says many students received the same score on a test. And so you can see how I highlighted many here as a keyword. And so many students received the same score. Many and most would be the same thing. So I'm going to get rid of F altogether. And so many students received the same score on a test. Let's get rid of that one. So students all received test scores between 80 and 85. And so when we take a look at this one, these scores are going to be close together. And so let's leave letter G as an option for mean. How about many students received a test score of 100? And so we see a keyword there is many. So let's go and get rid of that one. And last but not least, students received test scores around 80 with a few as low as 20 and as high as 100. And so here we have data here we have some low scores and some high scores. And so those are key things to look out for outliers here. And so if we have an outlier, that means we're trying to figure out the median. We're looking for the mean for this problem. Let's go ahead and cross that one out. And so we're just left with letter G, where students all receive test scores between 80 and 85. So now let's take a look at this. We have homework completion survey. And so This was obviously for another class. So we have students here, we have a yes or no survey. So if I ask you, did most students complete their homework or did not complete their homework? This is a really great time to use mode here. And so obviously the other two ones, mean and median, we don't have any data even to look at to figure out the mean if we were going to add up data points and divide by the total. And there's no really good way to line up this data in least to greatest since it's either yes or no. So we're really looking for mode being the most in this survey.